Welcome back to the Doubles Take podcast. In today's episode, I interview Nick Benseman. He's worked on huge movies such as Spiderman, No Way Home, Babylon, Tenet, Bullet Train, and he was the stunt coordinator for You People that came out last year. It's a great interview. I learned so much from him. Such a cool guy, so please enjoy. So thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate you being on. Before we get started, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about some projects you're most proud of or just some that you care to share?
So my name's Nick Benseman. I'm a stuntman, stunt coordinator, fight choreographer, second unit director, actor. The list just keeps going. I get bored very easily. Some of the things I've loved that I'm proud to say that I've worked on are some bigger things, but also some smaller things. So some of my recent ones that are bigger are Spider-Man, No Way Home, Tenet, Red Notice, Jungle Cruise. But there's been some great smaller projects too, including one myself that a production company I'm a part of. We went off and no financiers whatsoever. We used our own money to make this film, and it was just a passion project. And it's not Lawrence of Arabia or Shakespeare or anything. It's a solid B action film, but it's just fun. And it was probably one of the most fun projects I've had in my career so far.
Okay, that sounds awesome. I'll be sure to if you have a link for that, I can link that in the description or anything once it's done. But I like to ask this to everybody just to kind of give my listeners a sense. But for someone that don't know, what exactly, like, what are some responsibilities that you have on set, or what exactly does a stunt performer do?
As a performer, it depends. If you're just basically an ND performer or a utility stunt guy, well, not utility, I would say, but as a performer, it's really one of the most important things I teach, especially people that are coming up in the stunt field, is about hitting a mark. Because if you make sure you're right where you're supposed to be, and that goes for fights, weapon work, driving, high falls, every single time, if you know where you're going to hit that mark and you are able to repeat the process over and over again, it makes it cleaner, safer for everybody else. And ultimately, probably you're going to have to do less takes because you'll just be able to move on with your day once you've already got a really clean version of what you're going for. The the main thing is really safety, and hitting a mark is very much about safety as well too. Yeah, we make it look good and we make the heroes look great and the villains look nasty, but really we're doing it in a safe manner. Some people, when I tell them I'm a stunt person, they'll look at me like, why are you gambling with your life? You're doing crazy stuff that could kill you. I'm like, I think most people are getting confused, stunt people confused with daredevils. A lot of daredevils, yeah, it's partly it is calculated, but there's a big area for error in a lot of those things because most of those things it's never been done before. In this case, a lot of this has been done, and our predecessors teach us. We also come up with new ways to do it, and by looking at it calculated in a very logical kind of manner, knowing what our bodies are capable of and knowing what we're trying to achieve, a lot of this is pretty safe. And it really comes with the training too. When we're not working, we're just training religiously. Every single day is about training. It's our job. So making sure that you're well honed in your skills, you can hit that mark, and you can be safe. And then on top of that, you get to make it look really good and cool. And that's really, as a performer, that's kind of what it's all about.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. And so, for example, also, how much planning goes into it? Because I know there is a lot of planning, but also sometimes on set there's like improv or things change. Can you kind of go in a little bit into that, like how much?
Totally. I would say it depends on also, again, what kind of thing you're doing. But for stunts, it's pretty calculated. It's pretty well planned out, and there's not really a lot of improv. That's more, a lot of improv scenes generally are when actors kind of go through it. Now, that's not saying that I haven't been told by another coordinator or a director just to make something up in the background, or like say the said fight we were going to film, we don't have enough time for it now. And they're like, instead of that massive 12 person, 300 beat fight, just come up with like a quick 15-20 moves really quick and just get it so we can move on and make the story work. Unfortunately, it does happen. We don't like it to happen that way, but if you have a really good team behind you, you can still make something like that look really good. But for the most part, what we do, especially for fights, is something called previs, pre-visualization. We'll generally do that in a gym or a training facility of some sort, where you have, a padded kind of area that you can just explore and really discover the movement that you're trying to achieve before you get there on the day, and more of a safe environment too, because in the practice, that's where we sometimes take some harder recs, because we're just kind of figuring out what we want it to really look like. Tenet is probably one of the biggest examples of that, where for the first 3 months before production even started, before pre-production even really started, myself along with three other stunt performers, and then the stunt coordinator, and then two stunt riggers, which are wire people, that rig everything up, and they kind of fly us and puppeteer us. We all came together in a little training facility for months, just trying to figure out Christopher Nolan's concept of how to perform backwards logistically and not make it look weird or hokey, because he wanted to do it. And you have to give him the credit to it as a true filmmaker. He wanted as much real in-camera action as he could get, not green screen, and not have to rely on CGI. And we really did that. I mean, we did massive, like huge scenes where we have hundreds of people all moving backwards just to achieve some, what could be a couple seconds of screen time. And we racked our heads about that for quite a while. There were days where we were laughing because we didn't know what we were doing, because we were reinventing the wheel essentially on filmmaking. And then there was days that we were just yelling at each other because we're just so confused about what we're trying to accomplish, and like, wait, no, you have to do it this way. I'm like, wait, no. And if we're working on a backwards moving camera, then we have to do it this way. But you can't ever just let go of an object. You always have to, like place it down, and then you can move backwards, or unless you're trying to achieve the reversed, as we would say, reverse entropy or reverse gravity effect, then you could let go of things or throw things. And it was just a complete mind meld. After 9 months of that film, we all needed a solid break for a little bit. But it gave us more appreciation, especially for me, for what we do on other films. And when I came to, I think the next thing I did was Red Notice with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds, and they're describing what they wanted in a fight scene, and we're like, wait, nothing, no backwards, no craziness. Oh yeah, just a simple. Oh no, no problem. We'll give you whatever you want. So something like that, where it's very calculated. On Tenet, I think I reshot, because I shoot and edit a lot of previs. I shot and edited that one fight, the hallway fight, which was also the first thing we ever shot in the movie. I think we did that a little over 40 times.
Wow.
Just to really dial it in. Because the fight scene had to work one way, where this backwards moving character is winning against our protagonist. Even though our protagonist is fighting normally, but he's getting beaten by this backwards guy and can't quite understand it. And then later on, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, it turns out he is the other character moving backwards through time, and now he's winning, and at some point also kind of has to lose. But it had to make sense moving both ways at the exact same time. So every movement, it was like not just undoing, say, a punch or a bruise or a cut, but it was also solid matter moving through solid matter, or not moving through solid matter, just trying to make that very workable and realistic as possible. So it's a very long-winded explanation for a simple answer, but yeah, very, very calculated, especially when it comes to cars or fire or anything else super dangerous. So.
No, thank you for that. I love Tenet. I went and saw it when it released in 2020, and they are really impressive how you dude, because you have to. I remember watching a video on YouTube of John David Washington having to do like a lot of it
Yeah,
backwards. He did some of the stunts, right? And it was so impressive because you have to do it all a
yeah.
lot
And
backwards.
oh yeah, I've never. I mean, you rarely come across a caliber actor like John, where he is. Sorry, John David, where he is so dedicated, and he had never done any kind of fight choreo, martial arts, or anything before. He had to come in, learn the basics, and then speed it up exponentially in that short amount of time. And then learn how to do it backwards. And in that one case of that fight scene, he did it 4 different ways, not just 4 different times, 4 different ways.
Wow.
Because we had to fight forward, and then everything we shot forward, we also would then shoot backwards. Um, so he did it forward one way and then backwards, and then he's fighting himself, so he had to do it the same thing on the opposite side. And he was so good at it too. He moved so well that I was blown away. I you usually don't see that in our.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was that hallway seat is so impressive. I love it. It's so well done and it's really cool. So kind of like the backbone of this podcast and something that I'm a topic always on my mind is are there conversations that you're aware of surrounding the lack of recognition for stunt work at the Oscars? Because that's something you talk about or think about among
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as some of us get very passionate about it, some of us don't care at all, and then you have people like me that I think that it's not acceptable that we're not a part of such an association and organization that we've been so that has also been heavily reliant on us and our skills and our performances. um
yeah.
I love that Brad Pitt a couple of years ago playing a stunt character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood gave a shout out to us, and a lot of other actors really do for us as well too, especially a lot of big name actors. They always have our back, and they know the rigorous trials that we usually have to go through. And we always say, why stress on set, because it's not like we're saving lives here. My father said that to me. He was a UPM back in the day, but he fought in a war in Vietnam, and then on set he's like, everybody calm down, this is not life or death. But in this case, on the stunt side, sometimes it is. I had some pretty gnarly
Yeah.
stuff I did on Tenet myself.
Mhm.
Um, that were it was still something I remember in a fun way that I can look back on now, but in the time was very quite terrifying. But sometimes it's simple, and sometimes it's vast and crazy. And because we have to go through all that and not to be recognized really for what we do, just to be a part of the regular group, it stings a little bit. I mean, when Mad Max came out a couple years back, I remember someone joking and saying, "There's almost no dialogue in the thing; it's all stunts.
Yeah.
They'll never be able to receive an Oscar." Yeah, it sucks a little bit, and we definitely should be added to the group. So
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I'm making this because I find it because it's an essential part of filmmaking in so many films. When I interviewed Eric, he brought up how Everything Everywhere All at Once is a film that won Best Picture, and there's so many stunts there, and it's crazy that you're not recognized at all. I don't understand
yeah,
why.
and there were more stunt performers than actually actors in that, especially for that last sequence. It was fun because when the first time I saw it, it's just a film that would immediately grab my attention, and not just for the action wise, but brilliantly executed on all levels of writing, directing, acting. I mean, it was just the visuals, for photography, not photography, but for cinematography. And when I was looking through it, just as trying not to be a person in the industry to study it, but just to enjoy it. And all of a sudden I see, oh my God, my friend, I'm like, everyone in that I knew. And I'm like, they're all my friends that are doing this. I'm like, where was I on this one? This is so cool. Uh, and especially that lineup where it's just a barrage of stunt people. And, again, best picture, like just took like swept for the Oscars. I was so proud of everybody on that and so happy for them. But yeah, again, the fact that we don't get recognized for what we do for it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And so how do you think that can be implemented? Like how do you think there can be a stunt category at the Academy?
Uh, that's a big question. I don't
Yeah,
think
I know.
I know many people have tried. There's petition just about every year for it, coming from the stunt world, but and a lot of big actors always jump on and try to help us out. Um, I don't even know why it's such a thing. We keep getting excuses every year, as in, well, there's too many categories, it's already too long, yet every year they add some new ones, but not us. And we are crew and cast at the same time. And yeah, still not. I mean, I've heard some stories, something about maybe a famous stunt man a long time ago punched out a member of the academy, and then we were banned for life or something. And I've heard some other things where it was just more of a kind of a political nature, but who's to say why it is? It's just ridiculous that they won't even really take the time to really consider it. So
Right.
I,
And I remember 2 years ago they had that fans favorite film, like Time for That. They don't have time for like an essential part of films that they can't be made without it.
Totally. And even this year, where it was extra, extra long, and I love that they called out to the fact, it's like, well, you asked for it, so we put everything back in. Enjoy like 3.5, 4 hours, which honestly, one of the most entertaining stunt awards I saw. I know stunt awards, Academy Awards. I watched this year. I loved it. And a lot of my friends boycott it. They just don't watch it. And I'm like, well, I understand not watching it, but at the same time, it's like, is that going to do anything? I still kind of want to see the people that have worked hard or at least receive their moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, I really wish I knew the answer about how to achieve this and make this happen, but I don't know. That was maybe in the next 10 years time.
Yeah, I hope it comes soon because it's needed. I have another question just for my own selfish reasons. I saw on IMDb you worked on Babylon. I love that film so much. I was wondering if you could just like talk about your experience on that or the stunts because there's some pretty crazy things that happen in that movie.
Yeah, it was I can't really speak to much of it. I was only there for about a week, I think, maybe less than that. And it was really towards the end of filming too. I had heard a lot of crazy stories about what had gone on when I got there. And I'm like, what the heck are we shooting here? But it was cool. It was a period. Um, I always love those and appreciate that, just because the costumes, the sets, it just makes it all a little bit that more real. Um, and yeah, well, I'm in that cave scene down standing next to Toby Maguire down at the very end of it, where they realize the money's fake, and now
Right,
the
right.
hero's got to run out of there. So I'm one of the guys shooting and running right after him. It was a cool set. It was a great crew. The coordinators, both coordinators are very good friends of mine. So I was happy that they brought me on just even for a little bit to be a part of such a thing. And I love old Hollywood. I love the stories and the glamour and everything of the golden age of film, of what it used to be. In fact, my fiance and I are getting married later this year, and our theme.
Congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, and so it was great just to be a part of something like that. I'm a little bummed that I didn't do so well, but that's kind of the name of the game here in Hollywood. So
Right, right. And I think I have to ask about Spider-Man No Way Home too, just for you
everybody
know.
does.
Yeah. Your experience. How was that? Did you say you did previs on that, or was that for a
Yeah,
different?
no,
So
no, no. On most of the things I work on, I do the previs. So
wow, wow. So
um,
how was that experience? Yeah.
well, it's Marvel's a different machine, really, in terms of film. They've been around for so long, they do it so well. They have a very set kind of way that they do it. So to come in and try to help kind of move something around a little different, give it a different view or vision, generally doesn't work. That way they kind of know what they want. You kind of show up, help out a little bit, but you work together as a giant unit instead of like individual creators kind of coming together as a cohesive film process. I don't know what I was trying to say with that, but I gotta say, for the first big Marvel run, because I've done some small things on other Marvel films, but the first big one that I really got to be a part of the creative process, I'm glad it was that one, especially growing up watching all the Spider-Man, loving every single one of those, and seeing all three of those guys on set. I remember the first day that they were all there, and they're all in their Spider-Man uniforms but without the masks, and I'm standing there, I'm like, oh, okay, this is really cool. I just because it's just something you'll probably never see again, and we never thought we'd ever see anyways. But in terms of helping move that along and make it, and I actually get to play a character for a lot of it in there too.
Oh wow.
Because of COVID, some of the actors couldn't be there, and it was very tight. It was a very hard to work in those conditions at that time, because it was very new time for working in the COVID industry, at the COVID time in the industry. So I played the Lizard a lot of times, especially in the jail cell.
Wow.
Just proxy. I didn't really have the lines, but that's me a lot in a mocap suit, and so that was fun to do that too, and just kind of hang out with the guys and just be a part of that group. But what I know myself, the fight coordinator and the stunt coordinator are really, really proud of was especially that the fight in Happy's apartment. The director came to us and basically said, I want to just destroy the whole room and the building basically from the inside out. And he gave us a reference to a music video. John Watts, came from the world of music videos, and it put a clear idea in our head about what he really wanted, and we kind of just ran with it. So the previs I have off that is way longer. It's almost about 6 minutes, because we put everything, like just literally throwing the kitchen.
Wow.
Just throwing as much as we possibly could. And then we wanted to also show Spidey really fight in a different way. And Tom was really adamant about that too. He really wanted to do some real stunts in this. He really wanted to kind of get into it. And he's phenomenal, and like just to work with, but also how, again, another truly great actor that is physically inclined, like John David. Tom is a dancer and acrobatic, so he does a lot of his own flips as well too, even in The Mask, when generally wouldn't do that because you'd have a stunt double.
Right.
He just sells it, and he just has so much fun with it. And he wanted to kind of really shape this into a little bit of a darker tone as well, and John Watts wanted to do that too, so that's kind of where the direction went to. And we even took, I'm sorry, the only other thing I was going to say is that someone even came to us before we really got into filming and said, what no Spider-Man film has really shown? And we're like, what's that? It's like fighting with his feet. His feet are in hands as well too. And we're like, right, why the hell has nobody done that? So myself and the fight coordinator specifically came up with a couple different ways to do that, and only one really stayed in the film, and that's where Tom gets thrown out on the balcony, and then Goblin punches right on top of him, and Tom sticks his feet up, webs the ceiling, and flips him over as he's grabbing onto his chest. We played that a little bit more, but I think in the edit it kind of got lost. And that's where we just start breaking through levels, and then just at that point didn't stop. And that was a lot of fun. We did a lot of cool stuff on that one that I'm very proud of. So
yeah, I remember that was really cool. I remember when I saw that, thinking that his fighting style was different in that film than it had been in the others. It was like more aggressive, I feel like, than it was before, right?
And because the story obviously really helped with that too, and that's one of the things that I really try to help and achieve, is that really making sure that it matches to the story, not just some cool action for the sake of doing so, but really helping the story progress further. And at this point in Tom's Spider-Man's world, he's never fought a metahuman before. So that was the very first time. So when Goblin hits him, he really feels it. It's not just like a piece of tech, or he's fought aliens and stuff, but a metahuman, this is the first time where he's generally pulling his punches, and he has to learn that it's not going to do it this time. And through that fight, you kind of see the progression where he's just getting beat and just battered all over the place, because he was not ready for such a fight to happen yet. And that's where you can see the change and the shift start to begin towards the end of the film.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for being on. I really, really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you want to share or talk about before we end?
No, not really. It's I just appreciate someone trying to take the time to learn more about stunts and what we do, and helping us kind of get the voice out there. It is every now and then when I go to different parts of the world and I say I'm a stuntman, like, what's that? And I give him an example, the actor turns away from camera and then I jump off of the building. And most people will actually say, wait, the actor doesn't really do that. I'm like, well, that means I'm doing my job right, because we don't ever want you to know that, we're kind of the unsung heroes. But after a while, I really think it's time to give stunt its due, and stunt performers, so the people out there really do know what we kind of have to go through, and not just how fun, but how hard it can be as well.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm doing this. So thank you so much for being on. No, of course. Thank you. I appreciate it. It was nice meeting you, and thank you so much for listening to my interview with Nick Benseman. He's such a cool guy. I loved hearing him talk about Spider-Man No Way Home and Babylon, a personal favorite of mine. You can find me on Instagram at the Doubles Take. You can DM me on there. Let me know what you thought of this episode, or or what kind of questions you want me to ask, who you want on, or what stunt performers maybe from certain movies. Just let me know. You can find me at the Doubles Take on Instagram. There will also be a link in the description. There's a new episode every single Friday, and I'll see you next week.